Hello, my name is Evan Solis, and I'm going to be reading Anthem for Doomed Youth by Wilfred Owen. But first, I want to talk about Owen's past. He participated in what was known at the time as the Great War, or the war to end all wars, but as we know today, World War One. In fact, most of his poems were based on this war when he participated in it. He wrote most of his poems during the war, and what he saw all around him, the gas, the trenches, the young men dying. And this is what his poem, the poem I'm going to be reading, is about. You should also know that at the time that he wrote this poem, a few weeks later, he died during the war. So this is Wilfred Owen's Anthem for Doomed Youth. What passing bells for these who die as cattle? Only the monstrous angers of the guns, only the stuttering rifles' rapid rattle can patter out their hasty orisons. No mockery now for them, no prayers nor bells, nor any of mourning save the choirs, the shrill demented choirs of wailing shells, and bugles calling for them from sad shires. What candles may be held to speed them all? Not in the hands of boys, but in their eyes shall shine the holy glimmers of goodbyes. The pallor of girls' brows shall be their pall, and their flowers the tenderness of patient minds, and each slow dusk a drawing down of blinds. That was Wilfred Owen's Anthem for Doomed Youth. Now I'm going to be asking questions about this poem. As related to the structure of this poem is built as a sonnet, which is typically used for romantic poems. Now, I want you to think, why would Wilfred Owen use a structure typically used for romantic poems for this poem, which isn't really romantic? Why does this poem use a lot of religious words and imagery? For example, in line 1, passing bells, which is typically used for funerals, like the passing bells, like the bells used and rang when someone dies. It mentions prayers, more bells, candles being held for the young men. Why would such dark imagery be used in, as well, dark words and imagery be used at the same time as religious? And there's also a lot of repetition used in this poem. Why would Owen do this, and what sort of meaning does this hold for this poem? For example, the rifle's rapid rattle might have some meaning to how it sounds. Do you think that some of the words used here too might mean death that is useless for such young innocent men? Like the word cattle at the first line of the poem. And then what words can you pick out into the poem that might mean innocence? Now, to end my speech, I want to talk about my interpretation of the poem. Like, for example, the use of sonnet. To me, I think that Owen used this as an ironic way of comparing the innocence of, say, a loving couple. For example, how Shakespeare uses a sonnet for Romeo and Juliet, and these young men who've never found love. And Owen mentions girls' brows shall be their pall, which I think sort of references that. Young men just wasting their lives and never coming back to their loves, to their young to the young girls whom they might love. And for the useless death and the use of cattle, sort of Owen's comparing them to a cattle being slaughtered. The use of repetition, for example, the question of the use of repetition would be, and the line, only the stuttering of rifles rapid rattle. That repetition makes you think about the noise that a rifle would use. Overall, I think this poem, to me, when you compare it to a lot of other of Wilfred Owen's poems, for example, another one that I read, Dulce et decorum est, it really highlights how Owen thinks about World War One and gives you an image of how a soldier felt during this war. Overall, I think that this poem is great and that you should enjoy it as well. Thank you.